Hey guys, welcome to the Fetch and Funnel channel. My name is Dara. I'm a full-time professional media buyer at Fetch and Funnel, and today I'm going to be talking to you about CBO, or campaign budget optimization. Super important for you guys who have businesses and are trying to scale and make money. This video is going to take you from a CBO beginner all the way to an expert. The strategies that are in this video are the exact same ones that we use to scale businesses today. So let's dive in. Okay, so what is CBO? I had a great laugh with myself the other day when I typed in CBO into the Google and looked at images, got these results for sandwiches, the ultimate CBO. As a marketing nerd, I loved this. But alas, this is not the CBO that I was looking for. The CBO I was looking for looks a little bit more like this. So here are two examples of campaigns, one without campaign budget optimization and one with campaign budget optimization. So this campaign has the budget set at the ad set level. This campaign has the budget set at campaign level. Now, essentially what CBO is doing for this specific campaign is that it was able to get more conversions because it was able to pull more money into the ad set that was doing the best. So if we look down here, we can see that the CBO campaign got 15 conversions while the non-CBO campaign only got 10. Now, interesting thing about this is that on both campaigns for ad set 1 and ad set 3, each of those ad sets got the same amount of conversions. So you can see 3 conversions here, 3 conversions here, 2 here, and 2 here. Now, using CBO, they were able to see like, hey, we can still get those conversions and we can get them for a lower price because they're not trying to meet that $10 budget amount. And they were actually able to do it much smarter because they were able to pull more money into the ad set where they were able to get more results. So that is CBO, my friends, campaign budget optimization. When it works well, that's how it works. Okay, so this is an account that I'm currently working on, and the reason why I wanted to show this to you was because this account has both campaigns using campaign budget optimization and not using CBO. First of all, this top campaign, FF Tofu Prospecting USA plus Australia, we look under the budget and we see using ad set, which means this is not CBO, my friends. Let's take a look inside of the campaign at the ad sets. We can see that the daily budget is set at the ad set level, $50 per day for most of them, $25 per day for this one that's off, so it doesn't matter. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I decide when to use CBO? And I will go much more into that in depth later on in this video. But as a good rule of thumb, if you're still able to use CBO by the time you're watching this video, I like keeping my testing campaigns at ad set budgeting so that I can make sure that that ad set is getting the right amount of budget to be fully tested. Now, if you're going to use CBO for a testing campaign, you can make sure that you are setting minimum spend amounts so that you don't have that problem. And I will go much more in depth about that later in this video. But for now, I just like using ad set budgeting for testing campaigns. And for the CBO campaign right here, FF Mofu Conversions Purchase, When we look at the budget, you can see right here, daily budget of $50. This is CBO. And another place you can see that actually, if you go to the edit level at campaign, you can see right here that campaign budget optimization is turned on. And let me just go back really quick to show you that the testing campaign is off. Now, again, for me and with this particular account, I like using CBO for campaigns that have ad sets that are already tested and that do really well. And I also like using them for retargeting campaigns. So this MoFu conversions purchase, this is a middle of the funnel retargeting campaign hitting people who are social engagers and website visitors that haven't quite added to cart yet. So as you can see here in the amount spent over the last 7 days, that Facebook believes that there are many more people buying in this top campaign, and they are absolutely right. For this campaign so far, last 7 days, we have got 6 purchases, and for the other 2 campaigns that got purchases, we were actually able to get them for really cheap for this client, which is really good. I think a big concern sometimes with using CBO is that people are like, oh my gosh, like if we don't put the budget there, like what if Facebook misses something that would have purchased? No, they are so smart. If someone is going to purchase in one of these ad sets, Facebook is going to get them. And let's face it, Facebook is smarter than us all. So when they see an opportunity to get more people to convert, they are going to take it. So that is a few thoughts on, what a CBO setup looks like. The next thing I want to talk about is how to create your first CBO campaign. Okay, cool. So let's set up your first CBO campaign. We are in an aptly named random extra ad account, if you're wondering why this ad account is completely empty. So first, when you're in your ads manager, you want to make sure you're under campaigns, not ad sets, not ads. You're under campaigns and you hit create so that you can create a new campaign, not a new ad set, not a new ad. This part should look familiar to you if you've ever created a campaign in Facebook Ads Manager. Here you are choosing your marketing objective. Yes, you can use CBO for all kinds of marketing objectives, but today I'm going to do conversions because I want to make money. We're first going to name our campaign name, so FF Conversions and CBO. Create a split test, not why we're here, not today. Next option, campaign budget optimization. That's totally why we're here. So flip on that button. Here is where we are going to set our daily budget. Another thing to note, potentially you could also set a lifetime budget. Maybe you're doing a campaign for a specific holiday like Valentine's Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and you have a very specific budget on what you want to spend for that campaign. That's why you would use lifetime budget. But for us today, we want a daily budget, and I'm feeling lucky, so let's make it 1,000. Now, another thing to note before we set up the campaign or ad account, normally it would say campaign, but since this is a new ad account, that's the only reason why it says that. Another thing to know is campaign bid strategy. Now, they normally just have on as a default lowest cost. And if this is your first CBO campaign, I would say go ahead and leave it at lowest cost. Your other options include cost cap, minimum ROAS, and bid cap, and target cost. Now, a cost cap is pretty much saying like, I don't want to spend more than this amount, so the algorithm will only find conversions that are lower than that amount. It's a little different from lowest cost, because for lowest cost, it actually can go above that cost cap. Cost cap is pretty much saying like, this is what I want my CPA to be. It can't be higher than that. So that's going to control your costs quite a bit. And I don't recommend starting off with that, because that tends to limit your budget quite a bit. Minimum ROAS is an interesting one if you are working with campaigns or an account that's struggling, and you can set that up actually at the ad set level. So I will show you that later. There's a section where you can optimize for value, and you can come back here and select minimum ROAS. Now, your other two options for bid strategy are a bid cap. Bid cap is a little different from cost cap, because bid cap actually controls the cost of your bid in the auction, so not necessarily the result, but the bid. And the last option is target cost. The difference between target cost and cost cap is target cost pretty much sets your target cost right here, but it will find conversions that cost a little bit above that and a little bit below that. So honestly, I would recommend testing a few of these once you've had a few CBO campaigns under your belt and you feel comfortable with the lowest cost bid strategy. But until then, just continue using lowest cost. And just so that I am dotting all my I's and crossing all my T's, there is a little show advanced options. Here you can select ad scheduling. Well, no, you can't. You can only do that with lifetime budget. So with your daily budget, no worries, nothing to see here. And then delivery type, you could potentially select accelerated, but only if you're using a bid cap bid strategy. But that does not apply to us. So we set up campaign. You know, big question when it comes to using CBO, at least for now, is when do you use CBO and when do you use ad set budgeting? Here at Fetch and Funnel, and the way that I do this with my own accounts personally too, is when you are testing new audiences, when you're testing new ad sets, I always use ad set budgeting to make sure that each ad set gets enough budget. But when I find those special ad sets that are ready to scale, I pop those into a CBO campaign. Here is an old account I used to work on, and it has a great example of lookalike testing, interest winners, lookalike winners, and interest testing. First, let's look at the two testing campaigns. So, interest testing, lookalike testing, both were using ad set budgets. And the winners campaign, so we have an interest winners and a lookalike winners, both of those were using CBO or campaign budget optimization. Let's look under the hood of these a little bit further. So this was the testing campaign for lookalikes. We tested tons of stuff in here. And essentially the way that we worked it was when we found an ad set that was doing well, we took it out of the testing campaign and put it into the winners campaign. Same thing for the interest. So let's go ahead, actually, we looked at lookalike testing. Let's go ahead and look at lookalike winners. So you can see that we had a number of winners in here. One had been turned off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. Now, actually, what's interesting about this particular campaign is 6 or 7 ad sets is actually the number of ad sets that I'd recommend having in a CBO campaign. Everything beyond that, I've found it's a little bit too much for the algorithm to handle. And I tend to get much better results if I'm keeping my ad sets even more around the 5 ad set arena. So it is just another thing to consider. So to keep it short and sweet, rule number 1, if you are testing new audiences, new ad sets, and ad set budgeting is still available, use it. Make sure that that new audience gets as much budget as it possibly can before determining it a loser or a winner. I apologize to everyone who's not an Ace Ventura fan. Rule number 2 is if you are ready to scale and ready to increase budgets, use a CBO campaign. Another popular method for scaling budgets on Facebook was called the Michigan method, and that essentially increased all of the ad set budgets like by 20% every 3 days. And back in those days, which was like a mere 2 years ago, you would have campaigns that had hundreds of ad sets, and you would have your winners, and when they were meeting the right KPIs, you would increase them, and it was kind of a mess. CBO makes it so much more simple. So next time you have a really great performing ad set, test it in a CBO campaign. I'm always really surprised by the results that I get using CBO, especially when I'm creating just like a new, fresh CBO campaign. So always great to test. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about the campaign structures that we've actually used to scale our clients. Guys, we have tested every single one of these through and through, and when we want to scale our clients, we are almost certainly using one of these 4 strategies. So this is really important for you guys to test and your own marketing. And if you do, please comment on the video. Let us know what your results were. Please reach out to us. We're really eager to see how this video helps you in your businesses. So this first strategy is actually the Facebook recommended strategy. And essentially what we're doing here, it's really easy, is we are duplicating the number 1 best performing ad set or audience that you have, putting it into a CBO campaign, and then pairing it with a broad audience. Now, the whole idea behind this is that your number 1 tried and true and tested audience is actually going to train this broad audience to find customers that are exactly like your best tried and true and tested customers. So, and really, it's as simple as that. Here we took one of our best audiences. It was a lookalike, a 1%, actually based off of pixel purchase, lifetime value, and then we paired it with a broad audience. Now, for this particular client, we're targeting both men and women, so those are targeted, but we aren't really targeting older audiences. So we capped it at 55 because really that core audience was a little bit younger, so 16 to 55. And just so you guys know, when we say DC within our campaigns, that means dynamic creative. So in addition to also using CBO, we're also using dynamic creative, which this is one of the best strategies that we use too when using CBO, is also using dynamic creative that has been thoroughly tested. The second strategy is a little bit more of like a simpler one, I guess. It just takes all of your best performing ad sets and puts them into one CBO campaign. I know I talked about this before. We do try to cap this at, anywhere like between 6, 7 or below. We find that the sweet spot for this kind of campaign is around 5 ad sets. And you can see here we have a combination of lookalike audiences and interest audiences. So what we're doing here is we're just taking the best of what we have, putting them into one CBO campaign. I find that using this particular strategy is best when maybe you don't have a huge budget. A little bit more so than the Facebook recommended strategy. That strategy is better when you have the 50 recommended conversions through the pixel on that per week. This is a little bit more forgiving, and I think is a really good place to start if you don't have a huge budget to play around with. And just a note too that for this particular campaign, we were testing a 1 ROAS, but if it's your first CBO campaign and you're not really having problems getting above that 1 ROAS, then I would recommend just putting in your best performing ad sets. Don't worry about the target ROAS at this time. Once you guys feel more comfortable with CBO, that's when I would start testing out those bidding strategies. The third campaign structure that we have here, this is a bit of an interesting one. And it's funny, when this works, it works really well, but it is a bit, I haven't seen as many great results come out of this strategy, but seriously guys, when it works, it really works. So I probably wouldn't start out testing this campaign, but if you have one ad set that's doing really well, and then maybe test it at a 3% or a 2%, and you see that that's doing really good too, I would then try this strategy. Essentially what you do is you take your best performing lookalike audience and you segment it out between 1%, 1 to 2%, 2 to 3%, 3 to 4%, 4 to 5%. We've also tested this all the way up to 10%, and to be honest, that almost never worked. So if you were going to try this strategy, I would recommend trying this step ladder approach up to 5%, and if it kills it, go up to 10. Why not? See what happens. And the way that you set these up, for the 1%, obviously we're just looking to target that 1% audience. Wow, this is slow and crazy. I just want to show you guys how to set this up. Cool. So you can see here we have this 1% set up, and we are excluding all of the other ad sets that we are targeting just so that we make sure we don't get that audience overlap. Here again, 1 to 2, and then we are excluding everything that isn't that 1 to 2, and so on and so forth. That part is really important when setting this up. It is a bit of it is like a little bit more laborious, but again, if you've tested the 1%, killed it, then dipped your toe into a 2 or 3% audience and it looks like it's doing good, definitely give this a try. I find that when you're working with a really big budget and you're going for those conversion to purchases, you really are trying to drive that revenue, and you don't only need one scaling campaign, you might need multiple scaling campaigns. This is a great addition, and I highly recommend if you are on a super fast track to scale or you have a big budget. The fourth one I want to talk about is actually my favorite. I have replicated this across many different kinds of businesses, also used it for lead generation. This strategy kills it. This is the thing that I love to test, and more often than not, it really does kill it. So this, to me, is a must try. And And essentially what this is I have 3 ad sets here. One is a super lookalike audience. Now, a super lookalike audience takes all of your best performing lookalikes and puts them into one ad set. So you can see here we have multiple lookalike audiences within one ad set. These just happen to be from multiple countries. Now, I actually tested all these audiences before, and these were the best of the best. So we put them into one campaign, and the same thing for the super interest. So as you might guess, we have a super lookalike, put all the best performing lookalikes in there. For a super interest, you are putting in all the best interests that you have tested before. So again, I have tested all these are the best, and I put them into one ad set. Now, the other interesting thing about this campaign is we also have a broad audience, and as you can see, this is broad 18 to 65. We're targeting US, UK, Australia, and only female. This was a female fashion brand, so we definitely weren't targeting male. So to help keep that broad audience a little bit healthier and a little bit more in tune, we did take out the male targeting on that one. And this is just like a fun thing that I've noticed that works really well. When you first launch this kind of campaign, I have found that if you start off by doing the super lookalike and the super interest first with the broad off, and you allow those to perform and you allow them to track in sales, and when they start performing well, that's when I actually flip on the broad audience. I've found that sometimes when I turn on the broad audience right out the get-go, a lot of times the spend will pull into that broad audience and I won't get as many results right out of the gate. So I like starting with the super lookalike and the super interest so that I can track those quick results. I can see that the campaign is viable. And once I know that campaign is viable, flip on the broad audience, because then is when I know that my targeting is in tune and ready to find more people in that broad audience that look like my super interest and look like my super lookalike audience. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to be talking about today is how to set up a testing campaign using CBO. And what I mean by this is how can you test different audiences or ad sets while using CBO? Now, the reason why this is so important is because when CBO becomes mandatory across all Facebook accounts, we're not going to be able to test different ad sets using ad set budgeting. So in order to make sure that all the ad sets you're testing get the proper amount of budget, there is a way that you can make sure that there's a minimum spend. Make sure that there's a minimum spend. So here I have a campaign that has been long turned off, tofu conversions testing CBO. Let's go ahead and pop that open. This was a really simple CBO campaign. I was just testing a few different ad sets that had done really well for them in the past. And this is how I'm going to show you to set up a CBO campaign that will properly test your ad sets. So first thing we want to do in here is go to edit at the ad set level. And here at budget and schedule, this is normally where we would set the budget for ad set budgeting. But here you can actually set ad set spend limits. And what this means is you can make sure that this ad set spends a certain amount or doesn't go over a certain amount. So we definitely want to add an ad set spend limit here. And when you're testing, it's important that you make sure it gets a minimum budget. So this campaign budget daily is set at 200. And I would go ahead and put in 50 as the minimum spend. What I would say here is that if you have a really small budget, I would make the minimum be something like 25, and if you have a bigger budget, test around the 50 to 100 per ad set area. But a lot of that is depending on your product and what kind of budget you have. So I would set that ad set limit here, and I would also set that across all the rest of these ad sets. So we can go ahead and select all and then make sure that we're putting $50 into the minimum so that they all have a minimum spend. I also kind of like to keep a little bit of an extra budget hanging off that, just so that I can see where Facebook puts that extra spend, because that's also going to tell me, you know, where Facebook thinks that they're more likely to get those conversions. So if all these have 50, maybe then I would bump up my campaign budget to 250. So there would be an extra $50 for Facebook to determine where would be the best ad set to put that in. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty simple. To be honest, like, I mean, so like we've tested that pretty rigorously at Fetch and Funnel, but it's not something that I use regularly at this time. But now that CBO is rolling out across one of my accounts, that account is going to see a lot of this action. That account is going to see a lot of this action coming up soon. Also, if you're more the type that you would prefer to read an article, I do have an article that is the 2020 guide to Facebook CBO best practices and advanced strategies that scale. That is on the Fetch and Funnel blog. All you have to do is go to fetchfunnel.com, go to our blog, check it out. Please feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Dara Denny. Tell me what you thought of this video. Tell me what you thought of this article. And most importantly, if you guys use any of the strategies in this video or in the article, please let us know. We really want to know what your results are. And more importantly, we really want to see your businesses grow. So please send us those screenshots. We love seeing those. And have a great day.